welcome to The Tenants' Voice, the UK's largest community of renters, both online at www.tenantsvoice.co.uk and also now with this monthly show. This is the only show dedicated to the UK's 9 million renters, and with our help, advice and industry experts, our goal is to give you, the tenant, a better renting experience. Coming up on today's programme, I speak to journalist Helen Mulroy on money laundering in the property market and also the new level of designer living in London. Our correspondents Eloise and Renato speak to a well-known handyman to give you tips on how to leave your rental property in tip-top shape. Then I speak to the president of the Association of Residential Letting Agents, Peter Savage. But first, we meet Claire Epson from Daisy Lets to find out what to look out for and what to avoid when considering a tenancy.
Before signing any tenancy agreement, you need to make sure your property is up to scratch. So this week, our industry expert is Claire from Daisy Lets, and she's going to be telling us everything to look out for when looking at a property for the first time and during your tenancy agreement.
Hi Claire, thanks for chatting to us today.
Thanks for having
So
me.
Claire, sometimes when somebody views a property for the first time, perhaps they overlook some of the more important things. So what should a prospective tenant look at and address when they first view that property?
I think it's really important for tenants to make sure they know exactly what's in the property at the beginning of the tenancy. So if there's a piece of equipment, especially in the kitchen, that they really need, that they should be aware that it's definitely there. So for example, a dishwasher, not every property has a dishwasher and a washer dryer, for example.
So it could be that things they see when they first view, when a property's already tenanted, they might belong to that tenant.
Absolutely, yeah. They can't assume that what they're seeing in front of them is actually what comes with the tenancy. And often a tenant might actually have their own fridge freezer and be storing the landlord's in a shed, for example. So they need to check it's actually the real one.
Yeah.
And will this all be written on an inventory?
It should be, yeah. It's really important to get an inventory and schedule of condition. It's not law, but it is definitely advisable to get one for the deposit schemes these days.
So schedule of conditions, picking up on that, you mean like pictures and things like that of how the property was left?
There'll be photographs. It's generally about 30 pages long actually, so it's very detailed, and it will pick up on anything like ring marks from mugs, down to if it's a freshly sanded and oiled worktop.
So talking of conditions, we noticed in this kitchen there was some staining around the kitchen sink, perhaps mould. Would that have been something that would show up in the inventory? Or?
It would definitely if it was there at the beginning of the tenancy. So the tenants need to make sure that they're taking care of their worktops throughout the tenancy too and reporting any issues with those. So I noticed in this property that there was a dripping tap which has caused a big issue around the sink with mould. And that could have been prevented if they'd reported it to their landlord and got it fixed. So now, unfortunately, that tenant probably will be having money deducted from their deposit.
Is it worth maybe having sort of managers who will come in and look around the property?
I would definitely advise tenants to go for a managed property. There are very decent landlords out there that will do regular inspections too, and it's important to allow your landlord to do those inspections for these very reasons, because things that you might not see or feel that are important are actually very important for the upkeep of the property, and therefore your deposit at the end if you haven't reported things.
So during the tenancy, what else can tenants do to ensure they maintain the property and look after it well?
Things like keeping it clean is very important, and ventilation, but also regular hoovering, for example, to eradicate carpet moths, which is a big problem in South London at the moment. So moving the furniture regularly and hoovering under them, blanket boxes at the end of the beds and things like that.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Claire. So it's all very well known what to look out for, but it's equally important to know how to leave your property in great shape at the end of your tenancy so you get your deposit back. So we're going to talk to DIY expert Andy Watkins to get some tips on how to leave your property in great shape.
So we're talking today to Andy Watkins from Tool Property Limited, and he's going to be telling us all of those DIY tips that you need to know for when you leave your property. Hi Andy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So when a tenant moves into a property, they often want to make the property their own, and this involves sort of hanging pictures and things like that, which comes with holes in the walls and chipping paint. So how can a tenant best kind of combat this problem?
First of all, I'd say speak with the landlord first to ask permission to put some nails in the wall. Or secondly, you could use some blue tack, which will be a temporary fixing. It's only short term really, because it will eventually mark the walls And also when you take the paintings down, you do have the actual, could be pulling away some of the paint and also the plaster behind as well.
Okay, so probably nails or fixings are better. Are you then obliged to take those down when you leave the property, or is it worth speaking to the landlord to maybe leave them for the next person?
The nail might be in the right place for the next tenant moving in to put another painting there. So rather than go through the hole, filling the hole in again afterwards, speak with him first, and he might be happy for you to say, yeah, that's fine, leave the nail there for the next person moving in.
Worth having the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if the landlord did say, no, you know, I want you to fill that hole in, what's the best way that a tenant can do that?
You can get some small little fillers from a normal DIY. A case would be just to fill it slightly, the hole, leave it for a couple of hours, sand it down so it's nice and smooth, and then just touch up with the same colour paint that's on the walls.
Make sure it's matching.
Exactly the same colour, yes.
So this attempt here, Andy, would that be satisfactory to a landlord, would you say?
There's a little bit more work to be done on that. There still needs a little more sanding down and then another coat of paint on top just so it completely disappears.
Flush to the wall.
Yes.
Excellent.
So another problem we hear of time and time again is mould in the bathroom. So Andy, how can a tenant prevent growing mould?
Mould generally is built up from poor ventilation within the room, so you need to make sure that the extractor fans are working, the windows are open, and also the door as well, once you've had a shower, is to be left open just so there's a change of air within the room.
So if they haven't done that and the mould has built up, how would they get rid of that?
You can use a mould and mildew remover. That's just a spray you can put onto the tiles and actually kill all the mould that's on the tiles.
So we've got some mould here, so can we have a go at removing it?
We certainly can. So switch the spray on and then onto the tile, and then now just leave that, and that will kill the mould that's actually on the walls.
So you don't need a cloth or anything to wipe it down?
No, that's all you need to do.
Well, it's quite bleachy, isn't it? It's quite a strong smell.
It is, yes, but it's doing good. It's killing all the mould.
So if that had built up and it was in quite a bad condition by the time your tenancy ended, would you be responsible for getting rid of that?
Yes, you would. It's a build-up of whilst you've been within the property.
So make sure you get that mould remover spray.
Once a month, they'll keep it away.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thanks very much.
It's the summer, the silly season for news, but not when it comes to property news, as a lot of people are taking advantage of the good weather to move house. And this has certainly been true of the news this month. It's been a very colourful month. And with me now to discuss what's been happening is journalist Helen Mulroy. Helen, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jenny. Nice to be here.
Well, it has been a very exciting month for news. Of course, we've had money laundering to the new level of designer living. So let's start with the money laundering. What's been happening exactly here?
Figures are coming out. 1 in 10 houses in central London are said to be owned by companies registered in offshore secrecy jurisdictions, and there are £120 billion worth of property owned by foreign investors in the UK.
I mean, you hear money laundering and it sounds very dramatic. Does this have much of an impact on renters?
Potentially, they could be living in a property owned by a foreign investor. That's perfectly normal. But the reality is most of these properties will be being managed by property agents, ordinary agents from the UK, who most people would be very, very familiar with dealing with. In reality, the impact for renters probably won't be that immediate, but in the long term, this could push up prices.
And in the UK, of course, we've recently seen the Indian tycoon who bought the old Scotland Yard to make into a high-end hotel. Now, I think this sort of brings home a bigger issue of affordable housing and that sort of thing. So in reality, is this just now a dream for people, and will this push up prices for renters?
You know, when these big investments come in, they do something like buy the old Scotland Yard building, put it to good use. It gentrifies the area. It, increases property prices around it. If you're already a homeowner or you're already a tenant in that area, you are going to see a boost to your local area because of the investment. However, of course, if you are then hoping to move to that area, that is when it becomes a problem. Prices are going to be higher, prices for buyers are going to be higher, prices that the landlords are going to expect for rents are going to be higher. You probably would find it very hard to even work out if your building was owned by a foreign investor, and if you did happen to sort of stumble across that information, I doubt in reality it would have any effect on your situation whatsoever.
So, Helen, let's end on a bit of glamour. And of course, I'm referring to the Versace Tower, which recently apartments in there went on sale. So what's all this about?
In the Nine Elms area in London, and it's a new apartment building that is being sort of designed externally and internally, from what I understand, by Versace. So if you are wanting the high-end lifestyle and you can wake up with your, you know, in your Versace sheets and roll out of bed and drink tea from your Versace cups, then if that's the sort of thing you're looking for, then it's coming to Nine Elms. And if you're in London, then it's absolutely a plus for people looking for that sort of a lifestyle. This is what you could potentially describe as a very Asian or Middle Eastern sort of inspired idea. And yeah, it's very exciting. It's exciting for the area. It will regentrify the area, which will be great. It coincides with the Nine Elms Bridge that's going to be running between the South Bank and Pimlico when that gets up and running. From what I understand, it's a £40 million cycle and pedestrian bridge. Another great thing for the area, improving transport links, improving its general position.
They're starting at around £700,000. So if you're looking to rent in this building, it's going to be pricey. And it's probably, as a running theme when I've been talking to you, is about prices being pushed up by these stories. So do you think we're going to see more people sort of being pushed out of London to find cheaper accommodation?
In reality, lots of people now are looking to move outside of London. There are some statistics around it. Potentially houses sort of within an hour outside of London, something around 50% less. The prices are 50% less. It's around that mark. So it's a massive difference. And with London's improved commuter links now, with the rail services and also obviously the tube goes out fairly far now, obviously to Zone 6, and if it's going to go 24-hour over the weekends from September, that will be a massive improvement. It improves people being able to get into London, and of course they can live further out. And if that makes it more affordable for them, then that is an option that people are going to have to take.
But with more people moving out of London, is this going to push up rental prices sort of in the provinces?
It will do. Prices will rise when demand increases. That's a natural sort of occurrence. There's not an awful lot you can do about that. But at the same time, it brings investment to areas. It brings people to areas. It also brings new skills to areas.
So overall, it's not really going to have that much impact on renters.
For tenants all round, this probably isn't going to make a great deal of difference other than to bring new people to the area and more investment, which in the long run, if they're going to be there for a year, 2 years, they're going to see the benefits of.
Helen, thanks for your insight. Well, we're now going to cut to a break, but don't go away, as when we come back, we'll be speaking to Peter Savage of the Association of Residential Letting Agents.